You ever wake up, step outside with your morning coffee, and instantly realize that something is terribly wrong? That was me. The sky was clear, the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. Birds were chirping like they had no idea the world had just turned upside down. And then I saw it. Or rather, I didn't see it. My trees were gone. Not trimmed, not pruned. Completely gone. The towering oaks I had planted 20 years ago, the ones that shaded my yard, cooled my house in the summer, and reminded me of my late wife, all reduced to stumps and sawdust. At first, I thought maybe I was still dreaming. Maybe I had just walked into some bizarre parallel universe where neighborhoods suddenly decided to go deforesting in the middle of the night. But then my eyes landed on the one person who could have been responsible for this madness: Bradley Randolph. There he was, standing right at the edge of my yard, sipping from a pristine white coffee mug, looking as smug as ever. Bradley wasn't just my neighbor. He was the chairman of the Homeowners Association, which meant he was the kind of guy who thought he owned the entire damn neighborhood. "Good morning, Frank," he said with the kind of casual smile that made my blood pressure spike. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stood there, fingers tightening around my coffee mug, heart pounding like a war drum. "What the hell happened to my trees?" My voice came out calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that usually precedes an explosion. Bradley had the audacity to shrug. "The HOA determined they were blocking sunlight to my property, so we took care of it." Took care of it. Like my trees were some minor inconvenience. Like they weren't a part of my home, my life, my memories. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my jaw locking so tight I thought my teeth might crack. This wasn't just about trees. This was personal. Now let me rewind for a second. Before my yard got turned into a wasteland, my life was, well, not perfect, but at least peaceful. I moved to Ridge Gardens back in 2005, thinking it was going to be a nice, quiet place to settle down. Back then, it actually was. No ridiculous rules, no HOA fines for having the wrong shade of blue on your front door, and certainly no suburban dictators deciding what you could and couldn't have in your own damn yard. It was my wife, Margaret, who made this place feel like home. We bought this house together, planted those trees together, spent years building something real here. She loved those oaks, said they made the place feel peaceful, like our own little sanctuary. Then she got sick, and when she passed 5 years ago, those trees became something more than just landscaping. They were a piece of her, a piece of us, and now they were gone. I turned my attention back to Bradley, who was still standing there, completely unfazed, like he had just informed me about a minor weather change. "You had no right," I finally said. Bradley sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Frank, you know how it works. The HOA has rules, and those trees were causing a problem. It was a unanimous decision." "Oh, was it?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "So let me guess. You and your little HOA buddies all got together and decided that my property was suddenly a problem? After 20 years? Bradley took another sip of his coffee, completely unaffected by the fire burning behind my eyes. "Look, it's nothing personal." I let out a sharp laugh, a dangerous, humorless kind. "Yeah, sure, nothing personal. Just woke up one day and decided to take a chainsaw to my yard." He gave me that pitying look that made me want to throw my coffee right in his face. "I know this is upsetting for you, Frank, but you'll see, it's better this way. More sunlight, better curb appeal. The neighborhood will look cleaner." Cleaner. Like my trees were trash that needed to be swept away. I felt my fists clench at my sides. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to do something, to say something, to punch that smug expression right off his face. But instead, I forced myself to take a slow, deep breath. Because I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I don't get mad easily. Okay, that's a lie. But I usually know how to keep my cool. Until some self-important HOA bureaucrat decides they can bulldoze my life without consequences. I stood there, staring at the graveyard that used to be my front yard, my blood pressure skyrocketing. This was beyond insane. My trees weren't some overgrown jungle choking the neighborhood. They were perfectly placed, well-maintained, and most importantly, mine. And now? Gone. All because one entitled jackass with a clipboard and a god complex decided they blocked sunlight to his backyard. "Bradley, you do realize this is illegal as hell, right?" I said, finally breaking the silence. "You can't just wake up one morning and play Paul Bunyan with someone else's property." He had the nerve to chuckle, a light, dismissive laugh, like I had just accused him of stealing my newspaper. "Frank, come on," he said, shaking his head. "We followed procedure. We gave you a notice. You had time to appeal." I squinted at him, my hands clenched into fists. "Oh yeah? And when exactly did I get this so-called notice? Bradley took a slow sip of his coffee, the way a man does when he knows he's full of shit. It was mailed last week. Last week! My voice shot up so fast and sharp, it could have cut glass. I check my damn mail every day, Bradley. There was nothing. His smug little smile twitched, but he kept up the act. Well, maybe it got lost. Not our fault if you don't keep up with official communications. Oh, he was really pushing it now. Let me get this straight, I said, stepping closer, just enough to make him uncomfortable. You sent me a letter which, conveniently, never arrived. Then you followed procedure by skipping straight to chainsaws, and now you're standing in my yard, sipping coffee like you didn't just commit a crime? Bradley didn't flinch. Frank, I understand you're upset, but the HOA has every right to remove obstructions that violate community guidelines. I stared at him. Obstructions? He nodded, like we were discussing a minor landscaping issue and not the destruction of my property. Your trees were affecting the health of Mr. Randolph's lawn. He has a right to maintain his yard without external interference. I blinked, once, twice, 3 times. Then I laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. Are you telling me that this entire thing is because Randolph can't grow grass? Bradley sighed, clearly growing tired of my lack of obedience. Frank, we both know your trees created excessive shade. It's not fair to your neighbors. I was about half a second away from throwing my coffee in his face. Not fair? Bradley, do you hear yourself? Life isn't fair. Some people are tall, some people are short, and some people are just bad at gardening. You know what normal people do when they have a lawn problem? They buy better fertilizer. They don't conspire with the local HOA to commit arboricide. Bradley sighed again, the exaggerated kind that people use when they want you to know you're being difficult. Frank, at this point, there's nothing to be done. What's done is done. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay grounded. Oh, trust me, something's going to be done. And with that, I turned on my heel and stormed back into my house before I did something that would require bail money. I spent the rest of the day making calls, a lot of calls. First, to the HOA office. Sorry, sir, but the board's decision is final. Then to a lawyer. HOAs are tricky, Mr. Wilson. They have a lot of legal gray areas. Next, to the county office. That falls under private community jurisdiction. You'll have to take it up with the HOA. By the end of it, I felt like I was trapped in a Kafka novel written by a suburban real estate agent. The HOA had loopholed their way into getting exactly what they wanted, and no one was going to stop them. But see, that's where they screwed up, because they assumed I would just roll over and accept it. They thought I'd shake my fist, mutter a few curse words, and move on. Wrong. If Bradley and his little HOA goon squad wanted a fight, they were about to get one. I don't lose fights, not the ones that matter. I've been around long enough to know that life doesn't play fair. But there's a difference between taking a hit and letting someone walk all over you. And right now, the HOA thought I was just going to roll over and take it like some kind of neutered house pet. Yeah, not happening. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I barely slept, my mind too busy replaying yesterday's disaster like a broken record. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those damn stumps where my oaks used to be. I heard the buzz of chainsaws. I saw Bradley Randolph's smug face, sipping his coffee like he had just done the neighborhood a favor. By the time I threw on some clothes and stepped outside, I already had a plan brewing. And then I heard it. Laughter. Not just any laughter. Randolph's laughter. I turned my head and there he was, standing in his driveway with a couple of his golf buddies, looking right at me. And let me tell you, there's nothing worse than a man who thinks he's won. Morning, Frank, Randolph called, lifting his coffee mug. That damn coffee mug again. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought I might break a tooth. Randolph, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. You sleeping okay? He asked, grinning. Figured it might be a little brighter in your bedroom now, without all that shade. The audacity. This man had ripped apart my yard, destroyed my property, and now he was cracking jokes like he was some sitcom villain? I didn't answer. I just stared at him. Because I wanted him to know. This wasn't over. First things first. I needed evidence. See, people like Bradley count on guys like me getting mad, making a scene, losing control. That's how they win. They push and push until you finally snap, and then suddenly you're the bad guy. But me? I don't play by their rules. I grabbed my phone and started documenting everything. Every shredded stump, every sawdust pile, every patch of dirt where my trees used to stand. I walked around my yard, taking pictures, recording video, narrating every little detail. Here we have Exhibit A, the remains of a once thriving ecosystem. cut down in its prime by a pack of power-hungry suburban bureaucrats. If I was going to fight this battle, I needed receipts. Next, I called my insurance company. Well, sir, unfortunately, trees are considered part of the landscape and I cut them off. Let me stop you right there. My property was destroyed without my consent. You're telling me that's not covered? A pause, then. We'll open an investigation. Damn right you will, but I wasn't done yet. The county office, the local environmental agency, the state forestry department. I spent the entire day filing complaints, writing reports, sending emails. Because here's the thing about people like Bradley. They love rules, until those same rules can be used against them. And I was about to bury him in paperwork. You ever reach a point where you're so mad, so completely done, that your anger stops being loud and just settles? It's like a storm pulling back before it hits full force. That was me. Sitting on my back porch, staring at the emptiness where my oaks used to stand, sipping a whiskey that tasted more like payback than bourbon. They thought they had me. Bradley, the HOA, all those smug bastards. They figured I'd curse, yell, maybe even throw a punch, give them exactly what they wanted. A reason to find me, kick me out, make me the villain. But they underestimated me. And that was their biggest mistake. The next morning I was up before dawn, and if they thought I spent yesterday sulking, they had no idea what was coming. Step 1. Legal warfare. First, I called the county zoning office. Turns out Ridge Gardens had a little land use restriction that the HOA conveniently forgot about. That's the thing about these power-hungry suburban overlords. They love throwing the rulebook at you, but they don't like when you read it back to them. By noon, I had filed 2 formal complaints citing unauthorized environmental destruction and modification of private property without owner consent. Step 2, local media. Oh yeah, I made some calls. A few reporters I knew were itching for a juicy suburban scandal, and I was more than happy to hand them a headline. HOA tyrants destroy 20-year-old trees without permission. Complete with before and after photos. By evening, I was sitting back with my feet up, watching the story spread like wildfire. And then, right on cue, knock knock. I opened the door and guess who was standing there? Bradley. He looked different, less smug, more concerned, like a man who just realized he'd stepped in something nasty. Frank, he started, smoothing out his overpriced blazer. I think we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, sipping my coffee slowly. Oh? About what? The fine you just hit me with? The property you destroyed? Or the fact that your HOA just became local news? His eye twitched. I saw the article. Yeah? Good read? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, Frank, this is getting out of hand. We're both reasonable men. I laughed, loudly. Oh, that's rich, Bradley. Now we're reasonable men? Was I a reasonable man when you sent those workers to cut down my trees without my knowledge? Or when you slapped me with a fine for your mess? He put up a hand, the universal, calm down, let's be adults gesture. I understand you're upset. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't tell me how I feel. You didn't just take trees, Bradley. You took something that mattered, something I built, something that had history. And now you're standing here because you're the one who's sweating? He sighed again. Look, maybe we acted too quickly. Maybe there was a miscommunication. I raised an eyebrow. A miscommunication? Yeah, cutting down 20-year-old trees without permission does seem like a little oopsie-daisy, huh? He ignored that. The HOA board is willing to reconsider the fine. I held up a hand. Stop. Right there. For the first time in this whole damn situation, I saw something flicker in his face. Uncertainty. Because he realized, in real time, that I wasn't here to negotiate. You don't get it, do you, Bradley? I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You thought this was about money. About rules. About some stupid community standards you and your golf buddies made up. I leaned in just enough to watch him shift uncomfortably. But this is personal. And I don't play fair. For the first time, Bradley didn't have a snarky response. I smiled. So here's how this is going to go. You're going to drop that fine, permanently. You're going to admit that the HOA fucked up. Yes, those exact words. And then you're going to personally replace every damn tree you stole. His jaw clenched. Frank, that's unreasonable. I pulled out my phone. Oh, you mean this? I turned the screen to him. Emails, complaints, legal filings, a brewing lawsuit with his name on it. Or maybe this? I flipped to the news article, hundreds of angry comments, people demanding HOA resignations. Or do you mean this? I clicked play on a video I hadn't posted yet. Security footage of his workers cutting down my trees, laughing about it, joking about how old Frank will lose his mind. Bradley went pale. Now, I said, tucking my phone back in my pocket. What were you saying? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Fine, I grinned. Thought so. 2 weeks later, I stood in my yard watching as brand new trees were planted in the exact spots my old ones had stood. HOA members showed up, quiet and uncomfortable, watching their fearless leader eat a big ol' slice of humble pie. Bradley himself stood off to the side, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I made sure to wave at him. Big smile, lots of teeth. By sunset, my yard looked whole again. Not exactly the same, but damn close. And as I sat on my porch, nursing another drink, I let out a slow breath. They thought they could bury me. They forgot. I'm a tree. I don't fall. I grow back.